Now the three most common data types are integers, which can hold whole numbers, such as 1, 125, -84. Another common data type is a string, which can hold anything in double quotation marks. And the third most common data type is a decimal value. And so when you create a variable, you have to give it a name and you have to declare the data type. And the data type defines what type of data is valid for that particular variable. And when you assign a value to a variable, you simply use an equal sign and make sure that you assign it the proper data type. And then you can print or use that data. And again, you cannot give it different data types. So for example, if we did something as simple as give this a decimal value, it will not work because it's expecting an integer value. Now as a shortcut, you can define a variable and give it a value right away. So for example, like this. And when you assign a variable an integer value, Swift assumes you're actually doing this, declaring it as an integer value. But it's pretty obvious that it's an integer, so this is optional. Likewise, when you do a string, the double quotation marks and the red highlight makes it obvious that it's a string, so you really don't need to define the data type here. Likewise, when you define a decimal value, you do not need to define the data type like that. That is optional. And so you'll see variables declared in Swift like this without specifying the data type. And it's assumed that you understand that when you assign a whole number to a variable, it's an integer. When you assign a string to a variable, it's a string data type. And when you assign a decimal value, it's assumed to be a double data type. So these are the three data types you'll use most often: integers, strings, and double. And you can define them specifically like this, or you can simply assign a value and Swift infers that integer values must be integer data types, string values must be string data types, and decimal values must be double data types. Now the one exception is when you define decimal values, there are actually several different types of decimal value data types, and we'll get into that in the next video.